How we all doing out there? We got
Good
some
morning,
love.
Steve.
Hello. Oh, Adam. I can count on my brother. I don't think you've ever done that. Not one time.
Good morning,
It's you.
Steve.
Oh, Linda, I know I can count on you.
Sounds like you want to kick some ass today.
I do. I wanna fight for my right here this morning. Martin,
yeah.
one of mine too. What a great album. What a great way to kick off our Tuesday. Why don't we get right into the news with Zillow? I don't know how much you guys have been following this piece, but obviously NAR came out and changed their clear cooperation policy, and now has that kind of little carve out for you can list it, but it doesn't have to go to the third parties. So it's kind of like this new, I forget the word they use. It's kind of like a example of a delayed listing. And then there's still other companies, brokerages out there that are still using the private networks, and they're kind of pushing back on this clear cooperation. In Zillow, this was end of last week. We just didn't have time to get to it. They basically came out and said, effective May 2025, that if you are going to publicly market a property, so through yard signs, social media, or brokerage websites, the property must be listed on a multiple listing service within 1 day, which is the normal ruling, in order to display on Zillow and Trulia. So basically what they're saying, if you don't do that, you will forever be banned from Zillow, which is interesting, right? So now you can't just come and go, well, we'll go private for a little while, see what we can do. If we can't, then we'll come on the market. What they're basically countering with is, no, you're either coming to market and then you can come to sites like ours, but if you don't come begging later. So pretty interesting move. Obviously, some of the bigger brands have jumped on board to applaud this move by Zillow. That's just countering these pocket listings. I think there is a big contingent that believes that just full exposure, get everything out there, is what's in the consumer's best interest. It didn't get into super details about the appeals process. And I do see your hand, Linda, and we will get to it. Just make sure I go live over here. But it did say that if you were to relist under a different brokerage, and then that agent at that brokerage then followed the rules, now you could, get onto a third party like Zillow and Trulia. It does apply to both. I'm not sure if people actually still go to Trulia. At this point, I think they should just forward that link to Zillow and just send people to Zillow. But so yeah, that's what's going on. So interesting play by Zillow here. Linda, your thoughts?
Question. So for the states, for example, like Illinois, that already have had in place the private listing network for several years, are they now going to have to shut that down? Is it
Well,
retroactive?
I think they're basically saying you can go ahead and do that. That's fine. If you think that's really what's in your client's best interest, go ahead and do that. But if that doesn't work out, don't come back to us.
Okay, so it's going to apply to, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So, so now now you're really going to have to explain to your seller, hey, look, we can do this, but if this doesn't work, I can't get you on Zillow.
Okay.
And my guess, realtor.com, because they've been in the same stance with clear cooperation, is probably going to do something similar. So we'll have to wait and see if realtor.com follows suit. But yeah, so interesting response here. Anybody else have any thoughts on this? KB.
I guess I kind of have a question about this, because this is the one thing that I'm not really understanding is what is going to stop agents? I mean, all this to me is going to do is it's going to make agents have true pocket listings where they're not telling MLS that they have a listing that's coming on the market. They're just going to try to find a buyer on their own for a listing. And then how are they able to prove that they actually did that?
Right. So I think what's going on with the new CCP carve out. If you want to try and do that and you want to try and market it, whatever, remember, you could still put it into the MLS. You just didn't have to trigger third-party websites.
Mhm.
Right. And so you could do completely private, which I explaining that to your seller that, hey, look, it's just going to be me versus it's just going to be me and the agents at my brokerage versus it's just going to be me, the agents at my brokerage, and everybody that's an agent through the MLS versus it's going to be me, my brokerage, all the agents on the MLS and the general public, right? Like that's really what you should be telling your seller. Those are your options. And then the seller's got to decide. But it's if you pick those first few, we can't then just go, oh, it didn't work. Now let's go to the market with it. Right? That's what Zillow's trying to say here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that it makes sense. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of agents that are trying to be very sneaky.
Yeah. But those agents are doing that now, though.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
They're doing it now. I think it's an interesting stance that they've taken here to just really say, hey, okay, if you really think that's in the best interest, but then that's the road that you're going the whole time. Now you're really going to have a deeper conversation because you're going to have sellers that are extremely upset if you go and didn't explain that part. You know, I mean, I've been out of the listing game for a decade, and I remember my sellers asking, "It's going to be on Zillow, right?" Right? Like at this point, I can't imagine a seller that isn't aware of Zillow and the power of what it is to the marketplace. Who else? Anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Sorry. Oops.
Martin.
It almost sounds like another lawsuit waiting to happen. Just my opinion, that's all.
That's yeah. Yeah, let the attorneys sink their teeth in. You know, I'm all for the seller should have the right to decide, right? I think the problem is what KB is bringing up is the sellers aren't making the decision, the agents are making the decision, and what's in the agent's best interest. You know, because for most sellers, it's going to be in their best interest to just bring it to market and get full exposure.
Right. And I think that that's my biggest concern is that, you know, it's always to me, it's always gonna be the best interest to get as many eyes on the property as you possibly can. Unless for some reason the seller doesn't want that, but then
Right.
I guess that's the whole point, right? You have
That's
to
the whole point.
understand that you're losing this option. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Hey, totally get it. You don't want to go to market with this because of the privacy, because you're a celebrity, because of whatever. You don't want your neighbor to, whatever the case might be. You should have that right. I would agree with that. But those are, less than 1% of sellers, I would think. All right. We do have Kate Garvey, resident attorney, with us this morning. Kate, I don't know if you have anything in particular, if we want to just open it up. Maybe somebody's got something going on a transaction that they just thought was weird from the legal side to get your take on. What do you got, Kate?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to talk about like post-closing issues, but if anybody has any questions or wants me to talk about something specific, I'm open to suggestions.
Anybody have anything contractually come up recently or something weird? But yeah, Kate, if you got something specific, I think post-closing, and just, we've talked post-closing before, but I think kind of Kate and I were chatting prior to this call about, we've handled the majority of the high level legal topics. And at this point, it's probably in our best interest for the call for her to just bring unique little things that are coming up specifically on a transaction. Hey, just want to let you guys know, doing a deal now. This is what's going on. Just trying to get it out there. Let's kind of talk through it, or just wanted you to be aware type of thing. Margaretta.
Just a quick question. It's kind of a follow-up to yesterday's question about deposits, favorite subject. So if I actually have a release now from supposedly the buyer. So we're under contract, Kate, and the buyer's withdrawing. It's within time of loan contingency. The overall
Mhm.
problem is that the buyer kind of went missing, but apparently they're found enough to release a deposit, sign for the release of deposit and withdrawing from transaction. What if but the problem is the lender, because I think the buyer is not providing enough information to the lender, and lender needs to supply a letter of rejection. And the lender is not doing that. So if the lender does not provide a letter of rejection, what do we do with this? I still have to release the deposit?
Well, I mean, why are they terminating?
Well, I think it's because I personally feel, and it sounded like he was not providing information. He doesn't want to go forward with the transaction.
Like, cold feet. I think I know this transaction. Cold feet, ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Or one could say, arguably, that it was cold feet, or they just decided not to go through with it. It had nothing really specifically to do with.
Right. He's capable of getting a loan, probably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if that's the case, if someone's not providing a denial, and a denial within the time frame for a mortgage, and the client just decides to back out, you have every right to fight for that deposit. Whether or not you win is to be determined. But
Give it up while I'm ahead, right? Just stop wasting my time.
huh?
Well, I don't,
Give it up while I'm
Margareta, I
ahead.
don't know that that's, necessarily the case, right? Like maybe you could say, hey, look, we don't think you have not, the contracts, the ones that I've read, and I haven't read every state, every contract, or the latest contract, but most of them say the buyer has got to make an effort and do their due diligence to try and get the loan. They can't just not try to get the loan, right? And so if they try to get the loan and the lender says I can't get you the loan, and they get denied, then they get their deposit back. But if they don't even try to get the loan, or they don't provide the docs or whatever, you don't get the deposit back. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't just release that deposit. I might say, hey, look, we
Well,
believe that you don't deserve it. We understand whatever, we'll split it with you. We'll make some other arrangement. We'll give you 25% of it back, a third of it back, negotiate something here.
mhm, yeah. So, but
Yeah.
if I don't get the letter of denial from lender within the time period, then I have a right to keep the deposit.
Yes, you
I
do.
mean, with the stipulations.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I usually say when I always give my clients the option to go over the purchase and sale agreement with me. Some take that and some don't. But I always go over the default paragraph, and I say, there's reasons where you can default and get your deposit back. If there's an issue with inspections, for example, or, not being able to get a mortgage. But if you just ultimately decide, I don't want this house, you're probably going to lose your deposit. Like I talk to my clients about that, because sometimes that will sway somebody one way or the other, making a decision, right? Depending on how much a deposit is. Sometimes $1,000 deposit isn't a big deal for somebody. Sometimes it is, right? So, but to answer your question, yes, if you don't get the denial, I would argue you could fight for that deposit, and you'd have a strong chance of getting it.
And just vice versa, guys, when you're on the seller side, I think it's really important to explain to the seller, you don't just automatically get to retain the deposit, right? Because I think most sellers say, oh, we'll just keep their deposit. Well, it's not that easy, right? So having these conversations up front makes your job that much easier down the road. So these are the types of things that either at a listing presentation, you explain contracts, you explain this stuff, or definitely at the time of going through the offers. Hey, here's what they're giving us for a deposit. Here's how deposits work, and explain that process so that you don't get yourself in well, what do you mean they can just back out and get their deposit back, or that we don't get to keep it, or, well, that's how it works. Because most clients are kind of shocked when it gets to that point. And, both from a buyer's standpoint, they think they just get it back. And from the seller's point, they think they just get to keep it. And so
And it's also not necessarily the best, depending on what the deposit was and whatnot. I mean, do you really want to go to court and fight over that too? That might not be worth, depending on, how much we're fighting over here. But I mean, that ultimately, if people can't come to a decision, court can always decide who gets that deposit too. But nobody likes that. Nobody likes court.
Who's got something going on a transaction? Hopefully, you guys at Spring Market, we should be putting stuff together. Who's just got a little, hey, this was a little twist on one of my deals that I had that I'm just throwing out there. Somebody have a little twist?
So it's not my deal. It's one of our agents. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm driving, Steve.
We hear you good.
So we have the buy side. List side went to get the smoke certificate. The house is in West Springfield. I guess the listing photo showed a room in the basement that had a couple twin beds in it. They never used it as a basement. In fact, those beds were there when they bought the house 50 years ago. They just put them down there. I guess in West Springfield, the building department gets involved in the smoke certificate process.
They do.
Yep.
Nick from Smoke Detector Solutions went out there, and the building department said, nope, this is a bedroom. It's a non-conforming bedroom in the basement. There's no means of egress. So either add egress or take down this wall that makes this a bedroom. This guy, I guess, I've talked to a lot of people in West Side that know this guy. That's kind of causing all these problems, and he's not backing down. And I don't know where to go from this besides plead the case on the buy side, because I guess he said, we'll give you one, but then I need to come back out within, I think he said 90 days or 60 days to make sure that that wall has been taken down after the sale.
And
I can't think of anything more ridiculous than this scenario with this guy.
And this is all because there's beds.
There's a finished room in the basement that
Yeah.
when the listing photos were taken, there was two twin beds in this room with a nightstand in between. So he's calling it a bedroom. Nobody else anywhere, including the property card, the assessor, anywhere has this as a bedroom, but this guy thinks that it is. So
Jay, on this one, I'm just wondering if you could make the argument that it's not a bedroom because it doesn't the bedroom have to have that legal means of egress or a window or right? So, hey, it might look like one, but it's not, right?
I mean, nobody is calling this thing a bedroom ever, anywhere. I mean, even on a split level, they don't like to call those below grade rooms bedrooms a lot of times, the appraisers. So I don't know where this guy is getting this information from, but
And this is the
apparently,
building department for the town of West Springfield?
yep. Yeah, there's one guy that does this,
Yep.
I guess.
His name Jay.
Yes, it is.
Guys,
So I talked to Nick. I called Nick from Smoke Detector Solutions, and actually he was the one that went out there just to kind of get his take on it. And he said that he has 3 more, including this one, that are still pending because of this guy.
Adam, did you have something?
yeah, just a warning in West Springfield. If it looks like you did a renovation, he's going to call you out. He's made me get permits for swapping a toilet, swapping a sink faucet, like the most basic stuff. So basically, when you call for the smoke certificate, it automatically triggers a notification. Building department takes a look at the MLS photos, and he calls you out on anything he possibly can. I mean, he basically made me pull a permit for something I didn't even renovate because I couldn't prove that it was existing because I bought it off market. So just be careful on West Side. I'd try to get that smoke certificate. Maybe a little bit on the earlier side. You might put that $50 in jeopardy with the 60-day time period. But just be careful in West Springfield if you are selling the property.
Yeah, I've actually dealt with him a few times, all similar issues, and he just made it extremely difficult. So I think that's interesting though, that it was never used as one. And was it the picture that ultimately set him off, or like the fact that there was a setup in the basement? I don't know.
I mean, I did hear from one of the people that I talked to, and I can't remember because I talked to a bunch of people that know a lot of people in town. And basically this guy does. I mean, he trolls the listings looking for potential issues to call out.
Jay, one thought is you can maybe, like, I know I've added a bedroom basement bedrooms before, and we obviously had to put a smoke detector in, and they were oversized windows. But I don't know, maybe there's another solution, and it could be as simple as if you really think this is a bedroom, then we'll put a smoke detector in, and we'll maybe get a ladder. I don't know, are they the normal basement windows, or are they?
There is a window in there, but it's not an egress window. So I mean, I haven't been to the property, and honestly I haven't even looked at the pictures because this all came to light last night. So yeah, I think it would be cheaper just to take down this wall that's there than to put in an
Yeah,
egress window.
yeah.
But
Well,
the
I'm just saying, if
guy's
there's
like, it's
already
my
a window,
house. I mean, the guy's
put a
like,
ladder.
Has the attorney reached out to them?
That's on the docket for today. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, I said, you know, would it help maybe putting this guy on an email with the mayor? And the person I talked to was like, absolutely not. It's only going to piss him off, and the mayor definitely does not want to get involved.
No.
But I mean, this guy has to answer to somebody. I mean, this is really over the top.
So Jay, he basically is saying, hey, you got to show me that it's 100% not a bedroom.
No, he's not even saying that. He's saying it is a bedroom, and you need to make it conforming by either taking down that wall so it's no longer a bedroom or add an egress window.
Right. Yeah. So make it not a bedroom or make it a full bedroom.
Right. And taking the beds out does not qualify it as not a bedroom.
Right. Yeah.
So stupid.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, I mean, as difficult as this guy is being, I had heard about a story a few weeks back about some girls that went on like a spring break trip to some Caribbean place or something, and they were found dead in their room. And you know, when I had seen it, it was supposedly, you know, obviously something bad had happened due to another human, is what they were alluding to. That there was some, you know, person to be wary of. Turned out carbon monoxide poisoning, right? So like this stuff is important, right? And as difficult as this guy is making it, we don't want anybody to ever lose their life because they were sleeping down there and it's not properly taken care of and all of that jazz. So, you know, I mean, you got one chance on this planet, and we do want to do what's right and keep people alive. And so just I guess a travel warning. I guess there's such a thing. I had never heard of this, but there are mini travel carbon monoxide detectors that apparently you can pick up. Does anybody have one of these or travel with one of these? And then I guess it's recommended that if you're traveling, you sleep with the windows open. All right, because remember, this is a colorless, odorless gas. So, anybody familiar with these or have anything to add to the carbon monoxide story?
A standard, you can get a standard carbon monoxide detector that plugs into any normal 120 outlet. So I don't know that it has to be portable because they're pretty small, maybe the size of an old Game Boy that plugs in, and you'll be good. So it's not a not a special one.
Well,
Just another.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah. Just one other thing. West Springfield holds you to this, but a lot of other towns do too. Everyone wants house numbers. So part of that smoke detector certification is that there's house numbers on the house. So if your seller is not using a service and they're like, hey, we just, replaced these, we got the right ones, just make sure, if they just had their house resided or whatever, there's multiple reasons why you might have pulled the numbers down. It could be as simple as stickers that you get from Home Depot for a couple bucks, but just make sure your seller knows that they need those house numbers to pass for the smoke certificate.
I mean, I think this is a good example of also know your town. Know, if you, like knowing that the guy from West Springfield is a little bit difficult on this or that, or the guy over here is difficult on this and that. Like, I know I had a deal fall through because somebody redid a basement, but it wasn't our client. But when they came to do the smoke cert, they're like, oh, this basement's been redone. We want permits. We want, to your point, Adam, because I know this has happened to you, but it could kill a deal. It could definitely delay a deal. So it does help to kind of know where know how the town is that you're, buying and or selling. It could, it could save an issue.
With the house numbers thing, I think the easiest solution there, and I'm assuming you can grab this at Amazon. I had just gone to the local hardware store, but I just bought a packet of numbers. Typically, they want them, I think it's 3 inches in height. I don't know if somebody can correct me on that. And just keep them in your car, right? So if you're there at smoke detector inspection, or if you're, if you bring it up to their sellers, you could even just say, hey, here's, cut them off of your thing, and you could give it to your seller if they needed it. Those little things go a long way, and I don't know what a pack of stickers is going to cost you $5. So just to show that you're prepared, you're professional, you know what you're doing. Martin. Martin, you're muted if you're trying to
Sorry
go.
about
There you go.
Just a quick question. Does it matter if it's on the mailbox or on the house? I know, stupid detail, but just wondering.
I'm pretty sure it's on the house. I believe you're right, Steve. It's 3 inches, and I'm pretty sure there's a height requirement as well. So maybe I'll try to bring that to the call tomorrow to see what the official rules are. So I don't think the mailbox alone is technically sufficient.
All right, thank
And
you.
again, these are safety measures, right? The fire department gets a call. I got to go to 75 Main Street, and they can't find 75 Main Street. Ambulance, whatever, somebody's life, somebody's having a cardiac arrest, something like that, right? Again, these are just things that nobody's trying to be difficult. We're just, trying to be safe and trying to keep, people alive. All right, guys. Interesting call today. Appreciate all of those who contributed today. Love the little stories, so we can go down a rabbit hole. There's so many little intricacies to this business. And when you guys share your stories, it makes it enjoyable to kind of talk through them and have everybody chime in. So thanks, everybody who contributed. Staying with the theme, go take action today. Make some calls, send some texts, line up an open house, call your sphere. Do something to get yourself into conversation. Join a club. Go out and be active in New England. Enjoy some of this beautiful weather. Appreciate y'all. Have a killer Tuesday, and we'll do it again tomorrow morning. Take care.
Thanks so much.